I'm 32 now, and just a few days ago, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in almost 5 years. Mom? We hadn't spoken in half a decade. She said she needed my help, that something terrible had happened to Vanessa and her husband. But here's the twist. Her husband was once meant to be mine. Vanessa, my younger sister, betrayed me in the worst way possible. She slept with my fiancé, Daniel, on the very night of our engagement. Daniel and I had been a couple since our college days, and after 5 long years of building a life together, he finally proposed. He organized a surprise engagement party that night, and I remember thinking nothing in the world could ruin that moment. That illusion shattered around 2 p.m. when I stepped into the backyard for better cell signal and saw my sister practically glued to Daniel. They were kissing so shamelessly, so intensely, they didn't even notice me standing there. Frozen, speechless, in total disbelief. I couldn't wrap my head around the betrayal. After 5 years of loyalty, this was how it ended? And the worst part? It happened on the night we were supposed to be celebrating forever. When they finally noticed me, they jerked apart. But the damage had already been done. I ran like hell, jumped in my car, and drove until I found the first hotel with a vacancy. My chest was tight, breath shallow. I couldn't stop shaking from the shock. I kept replaying it in my head, hoping I had imagined the whole thing. Then my phone buzzed. Vanessa had texted me. She said sorry, but she loved Daniel. And apparently it hadn't just started. They had been sneaking around for months. I was alone in that hotel room when I read her message, and I crumbled, harder than I ever had in my life. Not long after, Daniel texted too, parroting the same cruel lines. He admitted he proposed to me, hoping it would erase Vanessa from his thoughts. Clearly, that backfired. He only ended up craving her more. He claimed this wasn't personal, that it was about him and Vanessa, that they just knew they were meant to be together. I was just a stepping stone, just the path Daniel took to finally reach Vanessa. I stayed holed up in that hotel room for days, trying to gather the pieces of myself that had shattered. I kept wishing it was just some sick joke, that life wasn't really this cruel. After 4 long days hiding away, I finally returned home. I had to. I needed my belongings, and I couldn't afford to lose my job on top of everything else. When I stepped through the door, I saw the unthinkable. My family was still living with Daniel, under the same roof, like nothing had happened, like they were waiting for me to walk back in. It might have been touching, if the circumstances of my departure hadn't been so humiliating. Everyone had been texting me nonstop after I vanished. I hadn't answered a single one, so when I walked through that door, chaos broke loose. Each of them rushed up to hug me, to say how relieved they were to see me, like they hadn't just stood by while my world collapsed. Even Vanessa had the nerve to rush over and hug me tight, crocodile tears in her eyes, like she was the one who had been betrayed. I was so stunned I couldn't even move, just stood there like a statue while they swarmed me with false warmth. Finally, when the fake welcome frenzy died down, I cleared my throat and said, flat and final, I'm only here to pack my things. I'm leaving for good. Until then, Daniel had been eerily silent, just watching everything unfold like a spectator. But the second I said I was leaving, he finally spoke, calmly stating there was no need for me to go. He had already packed. He was moving in with Vanessa now that the truth was out. My entire family, my parents, my aunt, and my late uncle's widow, who's lived with us for years, were grinning ear to ear, for what reason I couldn't imagine. Nothing about this was remotely funny to me. Vanessa clung to Daniel in a half hug, giving me a pitying look, still smiling like this was all some awkward sitcom. I couldn't take it. I finally asked them, What exactly are you all smiling about? Because to me, there was nothing joyful about watching my sister destroy my relationship. Nothing about this was sweet. Nothing was okay. My mother finally spoke, as if her words would fix it all. We can't change the past, she said gently, but we can accept the future. And that future is Vanessa and Daniel together. Yes, it started with betrayal, she added, and we are sorry, but maybe this was meant to happen. We hope you can understand. It's better this way, she finished. Vanessa looked me straight in the eyes and said she was so sorry for stealing Daniel from me, but insisted that love just happened, and she couldn't control her feelings. She claimed she wished she'd told me sooner, that I didn't have to find out in such a horrible way. But then she beamed as she said they were madly in love and meant to spend forever together. As if to drive the knife in deeper, they kissed, right in front of me, and my mom actually wiped away a tear, like she was watching a love story. I lost it. I told them this wasn't some romantic movie. What they were doing was disgusting and shameful. But instead of being ashamed, my family turned on me, accusing me of being immature and selfish. They said I should be happy for Vanessa, that I was making everything about me, and it was disappointing. I was stunned, furious. I told them all to get out. Immediately, I couldn't believe it. They were defending Vanessa and Daniel like some tragic love story, while painting me as the villain. They treated my heartbreak like an overreaction, like I was the problem. My father finally stepped in, told me to stop being a child, that these things happen, that I should just accept it and move on. He actually said I should be celebrating because Vanessa had finally found her soulmate. And I was just being bitter. They were acting completely unhinged, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I said enough, stormed into my room, grabbed what I could, and walked out again, without a word, without a second glance. They called after me, shouting my name, begging me to stay. But I had nothing left to say, because it was obvious. Vanessa's happiness meant more to them than my pain or basic decency. They were so busy defending Vanessa's betrayal that they forgot I was human too, with real emotions, real heartbreak. After that day, my family called and texted dozens of times, but I never replied. I didn't owe them anything. A few weeks later, I got a wedding invite from Vanessa and Daniel. Laughable, of course, I declined. Every mutual friend Daniel and I had refused to attend as well. Standing with me, even a few extended relatives who knew the truth cut ties with my family, disgusted by how they treated me after the betrayal. It's been 5 full years since I walked away, and I've kept them out of my life completely. Every now and then, they'd try to slither back into my life with birthday texts or holiday greetings, but I never responded. I didn't even bother blocking them. I just unfollowed, unfriended, and left the door open for them to watch me from a distance. My account's public for a reason. I wanted them to see everything. I wanted them to see that I was thriving, and let that jealousy eat them alive. Call it petty, but it felt like justice after the betrayal they served me. Until recently, I had no idea what they'd been up to these past few years. 4 days ago, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my mother. The moment I heard her voice, I moved to hang up, but she begged, for a chance to talk. Apparently, they were desperate. I relented for 2 minutes. Only because she sounded truly distraught. I couldn't ignore her completely. She told me Vanessa and Daniel had launched a business together, but now it was tanking fast. All their investors had started pulling out. There wasn't a cent of profit to be seen, so they borrowed more money, thinking it would save them. But the business kept sinking. Now they were drowning in debt, with loan sharks breathing down their necks. They were being chased from every direction. Employees, investors, and every shady lender they'd ever begged from. My mother knew I was doing well, that I lived comfortably and had more than enough to spare. So she turned to me, begging, desperate, for a loan to pull them out of their financial mess. And she wasn't asking for pocket change either. She wanted $100,000, just like that, to bail Vanessa and Daniel out. I asked why Vanessa wasn't the one calling me, why she was hiding behind Mom if she needed help so badly. My mother admitted Vanessa and Daniel had no idea she was calling me. They had strictly forbidden her from contacting me, because apparently no one forgot what went down 5 years ago. Vanessa had made it clear she didn't want me to know, and she wasn't willing to accept a dime from me. But my mom? She didn't know anyone else with that kind of money, let alone someone who'd hand it over without questions. Months had passed, and Vanessa and Daniel were apparently struggling just to put meals on the table. My parents were helping, Daniel's parents too. But no matter what, it wasn't enough, especially since both families were retired. Living off pensions, not savings meant to bail out disasters. That's why, out of desperation, Mom turned to me, her last resort. Truth is, I could afford to help them, but I had zero desire to. Vanessa was right not to call me. She knew better. They gave up the right to ask me for anything the day they stabbed me in the back. I told my mother flat out, I can't help, and even if I could, I wouldn't. She sounded heartbroken, said I was being cruel, that I needed to think about family. I reminded her, Vanessa and Daniel sure weren't thinking of me when they destroyed my life, nor did the rest of my family, who stood by them like nothing happened. So why on earth should I care now? I built everything I have now from the ground up. Alone, I wasn't about to throw $100,000 at people who spat on me and walked away smiling. She started crying, told me she never thought I'd grow up to be so heartless. She insisted Vanessa and Daniel were in deep trouble, real consequences if I didn't help, I told her. Too bad, I'm not your savior. Then I hung up. Since then she's been texting nonstop, begging me to reconsider, to have some mercy. She said this wasn't the time for revenge, that Vanessa was in serious danger. If I didn't step in now, I'd regret it someday. She's lost her mind, and I honestly don't know what to say anymore, because I don't want to feel like the villain. So tell me, am I the villain here for refusing to financially rescue the same sister who stole my fiancé and shattered my life? I finally did it. I blocked my entire family. I should have done it years ago. But back then, part of me wanted them to watch me thrive and burn with envy. And I'll admit, I was scared. Scared I'd regret cutting them off if something terrible happened. But now, I don't care. I should have erased them from my life 5 years ago, keeping them around to gloat. That was the petty part. Saying no to Vanessa now? That's not petty. That's just common sense. They've already burned through piles of money. Even if I gave them more, I know they'd never pay it back. 75 grand isn't pocket change. Just because I'm doing well doesn't mean I can toss that kind of money around with no strings. Even if it were a close friend asking, I'd expect repayment. But this? They're not close. They're not family to me. And they're definitely not paying me back. So no, I won't help. It's that simple. I even asked some close friends for their take, and they all said I was right not to give a single cent, not out of spite, but because it's flat out ridiculous to expect help from the person you betrayed. But now that my mom's blocked, no more guilt trips, no more texts, I can finally breathe. Then something unexpected happened today. I was mid-shift when my neighbor called, said there was a couple yelling outside my front door, demanding to see me. She said they looked unhinged, had been screaming nonstop for nearly an hour. I asked for a description, but deep down, I already knew. She described them, and yep, Vanessa and Daniel had come crawling. She urged me to come home, said they looked like trouble, And I didn't doubt her. When it came to Vanessa and Daniel, trouble always followed. I thanked her and hit the road. There was no way I'd let those two get into my house. 15 minutes later, I pulled up just in time to catch them picking my lock. I parked, stepped out, and said, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I reached for my phone to call the cops, but Daniel lunged forward and slapped it out of my hand. Vanessa stepped closer and said, "They just wanted to talk. They didn't want anything. At the moment, I told them to talk fast, and if they had anything to say, it was going to be in the yard. There was no way they were stepping inside. They didn't argue, which was a relief. Having them in my home would have been a disaster waiting to happen. They already looked hostile, so I didn't believe for a second that they came just to talk." Vanessa started. She said my mom told her everything, how I ignored her calls and blocked them all. According to her, I was being unfair. It had been 5 years. I should be over it by now. Instead, I was acting out for attention, making drama where there wasn't any. She said she felt insulted that I refused to help them, and that's why she came. She managed to scrape together the money, for now. But she warned me she might need more soon. Since they had nothing left to sell, she needed to know I'd be there next time. Her fallback plan? I looked her in the eyes and said, "No, you can't. Don't ever count on me. I hate you and your husband more than I can put into words." I was fuming and told her it was taking every ounce of self-control not to slap her right then, so if they had any sense left, they'd leave. Daniel had the gall to demand I sign a document promising I'd hand over money whenever they needed it. I mean, it wouldn't even be legally binding under coercion. Pretty sure there are laws against that. Honestly, they had to be out of their minds if they thought they could manipulate me into signing something like that. I told them both to get the hell off my property. That's when Vanessa shoved me and screamed that I owed them because, family, I was stunned. She laid hands on me. I almost slapped her, but I forced myself to hold back. Violence would only escalate things. Instead, I dove for my phone, still on the ground from when Daniel knocked it out of my hand, and bolted. I jumped into my car, slammed the door, and sped off. Didn't even glance in the rearview mirror. Luckily, I hadn't turned off the engine earlier, so the car was ready, and I got a solid head start. They weren't dumb enough to run after me, but they stayed at my place, which was annoying. Once I was a safe distance away, I called the cops and explained everything. Then I turned around and drove back, just in time to meet the cops before they arrived. Within 20 minutes, I gave the full report, and Vanessa and Daniel were taken into custody. I knew the charges were minor, and they'd probably walk soon. But seeing them hauled off was worth every second. It's been a few hours now, and no one from my family has reached out. Which is weird. I expected at least a burner number or two, but there's been nothing. So I figured maybe they were finally done trying to mess with me, or just lying low, waiting until things cooled off to pop back up. A week passed, and I actually began to believe my family was finally done interfering, especially after I got the police involved. But of course, I was wrong. That wasn't the end of it. This time, it was my parents who showed up at my door, asking if they could have a moment of my time. This was just yesterday, and honestly, they looked a lot more humbled than Vanessa and Daniel ever did. So I let them in. My mother broke down the moment she walked in, sobbing as she apologized for ever taking Vanessa's side. My father said that after learning Vanessa and Daniel had been arrested for what they did, and especially after finding out they shoved me, they realized they couldn't look at them the same again. They were cutting them off. My mom cried through the entire conversation, while my dad admitted they regretted ever siding with Vanessa when I had been the one truly wronged. I told them I appreciated them finally seeing things clearly, but it was too little, too late. I was living life on my own terms now, and I had no desire to return to sacrificing myself for family. So while I respected their apology, I told them I couldn't promise to rebuild anything. Some things, once broken, aren't worth fixing, even if it's family. They pushed back, saying we could mend things if we really tried. But that was the heart of the problem. I didn't want to anymore. I told them I respected their effort, but I was done. I just wanted to be left alone. They looked disappointed, but before leaving, they asked if I'd at least unblock them. Just to stay in touch, I did unblock them. It feels strange, honestly, but I guess that's that.